If you are working on a software application, you need to think about software licensing early on. Why is that? Well, without it, you can simply not sell your application to customers. And no, I'm not talking about an end user agreement or legal documents. I'm talking about a software licensing system, the ability to control so that only customers get access to your application. I will now briefly and in a non-technical way describe to you what a software licensing system really is, so that you can take your software passion and turn it into a business. I'm John Norman with Cryptolens. Let's get started. Let's make this video a bit more fun. Consider the following analogy. Let's say that your application is like a beautiful and cool house. The different rooms of the house can be the different functionalities of your application. This room, for example, could give you basic features, and this room could be some more advanced functionalities. Without software licensing, your application would not have any locks, and people could simply run into whatever room they feel like. It becomes clear that no one would ever pay money for this application because people could simply use it without paying. A software licensing system creates a lock on the front door, restricting the access from anyone who doesn't have a key, like this keycard for example and a keypad. So how does this system work in practice? Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We will feature that in the next video, but for now, let's simply assume that the system does indeed work as it's supposed to. Now that we have a keypad, we can simply create keys and give them to customers. In software licensing terms, the keys are obviously not physical keys, but rather digital license keys. In the most basic setup, the customer would provide their license key, the software licensing system would validate the license key and make sure that only people with valid license keys are being let in. The customer could then leave the application, and the process of validating license keys will be repeated when the customer tries to access the application once more. You can also choose to charge a customer on a monthly basis, for example, and then the system would simply block the license keys from the customers who stop paying. This usually happens in the background and automatically. Let's say that the previous customer stopped paying their subscription fee. They still have a license key, but the software licensing system will not let them in because the key is no longer valid. So that's the most basic setup, but what about the different rooms that I spoke about earlier? This room could have the most basic features of your product, and this room might have some more advanced functionality. A software licensing system enables you to charge extra for that advanced functionality. This can be done by having two different types of licenses. A green license could, for example, cost $100 and allow customers to use the most basic functionalities. A red license key could instead cost $500 but allow the customer to use the full functionality of your product. So that's it, right? Is software licensing really that simple? Well, of course it isn't. But I hope this analogy gave you a simple explanation of what a software licensing system is. In the next video, we will feature how to implement this system in practice. And if you want more technical videos, we also have an entire playlist of more advanced licensing tips for you to enjoy. Now, you could reasonably say that the house that we made is not that beautiful or cool, but it is functional. And remember, although a software licensing system can enable you to sell your software to customers, it alone does not make the software good enough for customers to want to buy it. That is something only you have the ability of doing. I'm John Norman with Cryptolens. Thank you for watching. Stay curious.